A shocking report just dropped from Shams Charania revealing a move has been made, leading Chris Boucher to land with the Boston Celtics. And this is not shocking that Chris Boucher left the Toronto Raptors, but the specific destination and the price point is very, very jarring. So this now makes official the path the Raptors are on and has a lot of Raptors fans questioning about if the asset management that this team has put together was right, was well thought out, given the current price point we just lost Chris Boucher at, and whether or not any of this makes sense. So we're going to break down what this move was, how much Chris Boucher got paid, and why it's looking like the Raptors fumbled some really nice assets, some fan favorite pieces in their push towards rebuilding and retooling this roster, despite trying to be competitive for this upcoming season. So lots of stuff to break down in this video, but folks, you guys have been crushing with the support all of this entire offseason. Now a big move just went down, so if you don't want to miss a single thing, we are here to cover everything that's going to happen over the course of summer, and then of course leading back into the regular season. So if you're part of the 53% of our viewers that haven't hit the sub button just yet, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. But let's dive into this, because Chris Boucher is of course a fan favorite for a lot of Toronto Raptors. And yes, the past couple seasons, his minutes have been up and down out there in the rotation, but there was always a little bit of hope that he would still find his way back with the Raptors long term once we try to fight our way back into contention, which we are hoping to do this upcoming season. Looking to be competitive, not to tank next year. Of course, it'll be tough to win a championship, but the hopes of Chris Boucher returning are officially cooked, as Shams Charania revealed that free agent forward Chris Boucher has agreed to a one-year, $3.3 million contract with the Boston Celtics. And Boucher lands a guaranteed deal with the Celtics and is expected to have a significant role out there in the front court. So this is, first of all, congrats to Chris Boucher. No spite, no anger, no, oh, I can't believe Chris Boucher left us, especially at the price point, especially to a team in our division. No ill will against Chris Boucher. Go get your bag. The Raptors put you in a very precarious position, which we're going to dive into in this video. But, you know, anyone that's going to boo Chris Boucher for going to the Boston Celtics, that's silliness. You got to respect a guy that's trying to stay in the league after dealing with a tumultuous couple years in terms of a role out here on a rebuilding roster with the Toronto Raptors. And Chris Boucher was still good in his limited run. I mean, 17 minutes per game, averaged 10 points per night, 4.5 rebounds, was in and out of the rotation. So doing this in a way that, you know, is very, very tough to stay mentally focused, mentally locked in when you're not sure you're going to play a certain night or not play a certain night. But a guy's still only 32 years old. It's not like Chris Boucher is 37 or something like that. A Garrett Temple washed or anything. He's still got, 4 or 5 years of good basketball left inside in him. So Chris Boucher, getting his contract, I am honestly shocked, because we heard a bunch of comments. We heard a bunch of things regarding Chris Boucher and his future and stuff, essentially from Masai Ujiri. Yes, the Raptors decided to, go in a youth movement, get in a younger direction, all of that. Darko, Masai, they all spoke very, very highly of Chris Boucher and said it shouldn't affect his market. This certainly affected his market, because Chris Boucher right now making $3 million, that is a guy that, when he's healthy, well, not when he's healthy, when he's in the rotation, when he's getting minutes, when he's getting opportunities, he has proven, and he got that contract with the Toronto Raptors, right, that he can be a player that is an impact guy on a really, really strong playoff team. And it is just surprising to see that, he got this little bread, because, the comments that came out from, Masai Ujiri, and he's expected to have his role in the front court, which is a positive. But Masai Ujiri said this at the end of the season. Of course, Masai Ujiri is no longer the president of basketball operations for the Raptors, but he came out and said that everyone knows who Chris Boucher is. The value of what he is still stands here with us, and stands with it all over the league. Teams ask me every day about him. I know who Chris Boucher is, and the tough place that we put him in. I don't know who Jonathan Mobo is. I don't know who Jamison Battle is in terms of where they are going. So these were a couple quotes that came from Masai Ujiri at the start, at the end of the offseason and stuff, basically in regards to Chris Boucher, saying, essentially alluding to the fact, hey, he's still going to get paid out there in free agency. The league knows how valuable he is, but the Raptors had to figure out who Jonathan Mobo was, who Jamison Battle were, and, in that retooling, rebuilding year. And that's something we all expected, but, there's a couple avenues to really look down this at, because first of all, there's a lot of criticisms thrown the way the Raptors treated Chris Boucher. As he's a vet, he's been with the team a long time, he's one of the last remaining guys on our championship-winning squad, and he was in the doghouse for the rotation. Now, Darko Rajaković had some quotes in regards to Chris Boucher, if I have them pulled up, and they are not pulled up here right now, but essentially, Darko came out and said that Chris Boucher is handling it very maturely and stuff, but getting benched for a guy that's averaging 10 points per game when you're overtly trying to lose, trying to tank, it's just a bad look. And then to where Chris Boucher, making $10 million, $11 million annually, now to down to 3. You really nerfed his value. You nerfed his value out there on the open market. There's no real debating that. So that is something that's going to breed, if I'm a role player, do I want to go to Toronto? If this season ends up not being great for this team, how does that impact our ability to land free agents long term? That is something that you seriously have to take into account when Chris Boucher. I know the second apron stuff, it's a completely different market for role players than it was 3-4 seasons ago. So that definitely played a factor and would have played a factor regardless if Chris Boucher was getting DMPs or not this season. But nonetheless, you cannot argue the Raptors' decision-making in terms of rebuilding, going younger and stuff certainly affected Chris Boucher's open market value. So essentially, you have to take that into account now when you're trying to attract free agents. Have the Raptors ever attracted big-name free agents? Not really, but they have been doing a better job in the last decade or so. You've landed some, not the biggest fish in the world, but, solid role players, that had some value in the open market, whether it was an Otto Porter Jr., whether it was a Damari Carroll in seasons prior. Not the biggest names, but players around the level of Chris Boucher when they're entering the open market, and then, are we going to be able to attract those guys in the future? So that is one thing you have to take into account. That is what it is. A lot of people probably aren't going to stress over how the Raptors ended up treating Chris Boucher. But the real thing that I want to bring up, that I want to have a little discourse, I want to have a little dialogue on is, did the Raptors completely mess up this asset management? Because yes, the Toronto Raptors don't want to go over the cap. It's something that makes sense, and all of these types of things. Yes. The Raptors have Scottie Barnes, Brandon Ingram, Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, all on expensive contracts. Jakob Poeltl as well. We were a mid-team last season, and we didn't make any crazy roster upgrades. Now, I'm hoping internally we have young guys develop, come into their own. Brandon Ingram added to the mix. I'm hopeful this Raptors team is going to be really good next season. And the optimism, the thought process is that the Raptors are planning to be back out there in the mix for this upcoming season. But, of course, as Masai Ujiri put it, hey, we don't know what we have in Jamison Bell. We don't know what we have in Jonathan Mobo. And, of course, those guys are good. Those guys showed some potential. And do not get me wrong. You're not going to get any, especially Jamison Bell slander or even Mobo slander out here on the spot. But both of those guys are not the level of Chris Boucher right now. Now, Mobo's a better passer, but is a little bit more in control. Jamison Bell is certainly a better three-point shooter, but Chris Boucher is a better player than both of those guys here right now. Now, of course, after another offseason of development, could they jump into the mix? That's definitely something to take into account. But you see that out here, just in contract situations, you be like, but those are second-round picks. Those guys are making, $1.9 million? Chris Boucher is making $3 million. $3 million for the Boston Celtics this year. You're telling me that we couldn't have finessed our way in a season where we are trying to get back to being good. I know we're all looking to the future and the potential and this and that and all that. Chris Boucher would have been valuable to a team, any team that is trying to compete, as trying to get better, as a backup big man, a backup 4, a backup 5. Like, could you not have just given Chris Boucher more, or maybe if we didn't bench him for the entire season, we played our cards correctly? I know Mamu Kelishvili is a guy that's exciting, is young, and all that stuff as well. But defensively, Chris Boucher is a lot more upside than a Mamu. Offensively, he's a better player than a Jamison Bell, than a Jonathan Mobo here now at this point. Again, not taking development into account here now. I know that also Mobo's tight with Scottie Barnes, so those are all things you have to factor in. But could you not have, played your cards right, dealt with Chris Boucher the correct way, and then given him the maybe a little bit $3-4 million that he got from the Boston Celtics? Could you not have figured out that cap negotiation? Like, could you not have adjusted your roster, planned things out correctly if this was going to be the market for Chris Boucher? I love our team. I love our young core. I love our young group. But if we are going to be competitive, if we are pushing to be competitive, losing pieces like Chris Boucher, that's not getting overpaid, because the Raptors are notorious right now for overpaying for talents of big contracts. Now, we're hoping they grow into that space or stay healthy enough to earn that contract. I'm not trashing any of the contracts out here on our team, but you had an opportunity. You had a guy in-house. Let me bring up his stats once again. Averaged 10 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 1 assist. Like, a guy that is good. It's still in the prime of his career. You had the opportunity where the market was only going to pay him $3 million. You couldn't, figure out the cap, make some adjustments, make some tweaks to have Chris Boucher out here on this team longer term. You couldn't figure that out? I don't know. I'm disappointed. And it's sickening, more sickening. The Boston Celtics get to reap the benefits of the Raptors' poor asset management, but that is neither here nor there. Congratulations to Chris Boucher for getting a contract. Hopefully the Toronto Raptors, though, they're doing developing these young guys. They do have a track record of being able to do that, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. You guys best thing as far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.